We'll turn to our roundtable now. We're going to get to the rollout of Obamacare in a moment, but let's start with the government shutdown. NBC News put the call out this week with the hashtag Dear Congress, asked people to let Congress know how it feels. Let's take a look at some of the response.
Dear Congress, I would like for you to go without a pay for 1 month.
Stop acting in your own self-interest. Get your act together and do what's right for the country.
I hope to God in next year's election, all of you are booted out.
Congresswoman Fudge, aren't you the lucky one to be the sitting member at this table? Listen, no matter who gets the blame here ultimately, whether people blame the Republicans or the Democrats, in the end, is it just bad for the institution? Is it a pox on all of your houses?
Yes, in fact, it is. There are no winners here. There are only losers here. When you talk about shutting down the government and all of the machinations that go around about who's at fault, who's not, and why we should have a clean CR, let me just say to you, it is our responsibility to fund the government of the United States. And we should not allow anyone to extract a ransom for us to do our jobs.
Turn to Mike Murphy, Republican strategist. I mean, 2/3 of the country don't like the tactic of shutting down the government. Even if they don't like Obamacare, they don't like this tactic.
Right, that's the problem. I think we ought to go back to the problems with the computer sites, because what we have is a perfect storm here. You take the cynics who run the Democratic Party, and you take the stupid wing of the House GOP, they fell for a trap. So now we're going to debate all this. When we're 13 months away from an election, the Republicans can win on Obamacare. But instead, somehow a monkey wrench got thrown into the system, and now everybody hates Congress, and Republicans are taking the bigger political hit. I saw a poll the other day where the approval rating for the U.S. Congress was at 5%, and the margin of error was 6%. You could not statistically prove that anybody exists in the country approved of Congress, and this is why.
Rich, do you think it was a miscalculation for Republicans to make this stand in this way over the shutdown?
Well, everyone knew for a long time you're going to have a confrontation in the fall over the continuing resolution and/or the debt limit. Now, it's true the House GOP leadership was forced by an element of its rank and file. This is not how they would have set up this fight. They would have gone to the debt limit right away. But now they're in this fight. It's inevitably going to segue into the debt limit, and the caucus is united, and they want to hold firm until Harry Reid and President Obama actually are willing to negotiate, which is how these kind of disputes are always settled.
Is the House Conference united, Steve? I mean, what does your reporting tell you?
Not at all. When I talk with Republicans, there's an incredible diversity of opinion. And I think when you try to decide who's to blame for this shutdown, you can say, well, the Republicans wanted it. I think that's unfair. I think it is fair to say that some Republicans in the House misjudged their opponents. They assumed that the Democrats would cave. They were wrong. And when I talk to Republicans, the Republican who, to me, seems to have the best notion of what is on the Democrats' mind, believe it or not, is Grover Norquist, the conservative activist, Americans for Tax Reform, gave a fascinating interview to the Washington Post in which he said the way to deal with this is get past in some short-term way, perhaps, however you have to, both the debt ceiling and this budget problem and the shutdown, and push the Democrats instead on the sequestration, these really deep budget cuts. And there you're identifying something that the Democrats actually are bothered by, that they might be willing to give the Republicans something in order to get out of.
But, Congressman, let me turn to you. As this goes on and on, the president's stance is, I won't negotiate. And even if there's a host of reasons why that is a responsible position, as a bumper sticker, it's not the greatest, is it? We're about to have an economic calamity, but I'm not negotiating?
Let me just say this to you. The full faith and credit of the United States is not negotiable. It is our job to fund the government. And I would say to those people who believe that it is appropriate to say that, oh, we're not going to pass a continuing resolution, a clean bill, because we want the president to negotiate. The president has already offered to negotiate on Obamacare. He has said, if you bring me ideas, I'm willing to accept them. This is the point at which we then take hostages and say, oh, you know, if you don't change Obamacare, we're not going forward. We passed continuing resolutions 8 times in a Judge Bush.
Let me get one of these Republicans in on this.
Just, it is the job of the President of the United States to rise above petty politics. The shutdown is politics. The debt ceiling is a catastrophe.
Oh, different. Yeah.
So it's the last time we had this, we solved it with painful bipartisan negotiations. That is the way to get out of this debt ceiling problem.
Do you think the president should negotiate?
I think it's his job to knock heads. The Republicans won't get much, but they can get something. They're going to give up a lot, and the Democrats cannot go into a cliff like this with a we don't talk, we don't negotiate Harry Reid point of view. It is a disaster.
But how does
the House Republican Conference passed the Full Faith and Credit Act to help ensure that even if we go over the debt limit, that the debts will be paid. And Democrats uniformly oppose that because they have this cynical politics at work here where they want to make everything as frightening and as painful as possible. They complain about the NIH not having funding. Well, Republicans want to fund the NIH, but the Democrats oppose it. It's a cynical strategy, and if there's a political threat to Democrats here, it's the cynicism and intransigence show.
Let's be clear. They pilloried the Senate for not having a budget. We passed a budget, the Senate passed a budget 6 months ago. They ignored it. We would not be where we are today had they gone to conference and we had a budget.
But why would you oppose a bill to fund the NIH?
No, you want to make up things. I'm talking about facts.
The House has passed a bill to fund the NIH. Why won't you support it?
It was passed. I don't support it because every single function of the government is important.
Well, why wouldn't you support measures to make this less painful until it's actually negotiated, until there's an end actually negotiated?
Less painful for whom?
I'm going to jump in here unless people think I went out for a cocktail or something. Let's talk about Obamacare. Obviously, the rollout did not go as smoothly as hoped, and Saturday Night Live was there to have a little fun with it. Take a look.
Loser, the Obamacare website, which had technical issues all week because of too much web traffic. You can't campaign on the fact that millions don't have health care and then be surprised that millions don't have health care. How could you not be ready? That's like 1-800-Flowers getting caught off guard by Valentine's Day.
How about it, Steve Inskeep? You interviewed the president this week about this very subject.
And he acknowledged there were going to be glitches, which of course is what a president needs to do in this situation, is spin. Say, expect problems.
Sounds like something more than glitches, though.
Well, yeah, and this is huge because we now have the reality of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act that's here. We have Republicans who've said again and again, be afraid, be terrified by this. We've had Democrats who actually haven't supported it that much, but have said it's going to be okay, it's going to be fine. And now we have the possibility of millions of Americans dealing with the reality of it for better or for worse. And I think that has a potential to transform this debate over time. I think it's still possible for reality to have some bearing on politics.
But, Mike, was this a tactical error on the part of Republicans? I mean, that might have been the lead story in every single paper.
Well, yeah, look,
but for the shutdown.
On the policy, I'm so sympathetic to my side on this. I think they're right about a lot of it. But that's why we have midterm elections, so you can throw Democrats out of office over Obamacare. There's no rule in politics. When your opponent is in trouble, when they're drowning politically, you throw them a fire hose. We threw them a lifeboat and a machine gun, because now we're going to debate this. Excuse me, I'm all choked up. I'm so sorry. Instead of 13 months away, getting control of the Senate, which means we can have the policy fight within the system. So on a tactical basis, it is an incredibly stupid move.
Do you agree with that, Rich?
No, I mean, I think Mike is a little too panicked over here. He can barely get his words out.
I hate to you're losing this thing.
Look, it's a short-term thing whether the Obamacare glitches get enough coverage the first week. The key question is whether they're really, over time, enough people sign up to make the exchanges work, and I'm very dubious about that. This law has a legitimacy problem. It was never popular when it was proposed. It's even less popular now. It was unprecedented in that it was a major social change just passed along partisan lines, and I think is going to exacerbate some of the worst aspects of our healthcare system and create new problems on top of it.
Let me let Congresswoman Fudge have the first and the last word. What do you think about this rollout of Obamacare? Are you disappointed?
Well, certainly, but let me just differentiate between enrollment and the plan itself. There have been some difficulties with enrollment in the plan, and everybody admits that. And yes, we should have been better prepared. But it does not negate the fact that the plan itself is going to work. We're going to reduce the cost of insurance. We're going to do away with the things that have been creating problems with our deficit, like Medicare Part D. We're going to do things that are going to make this country better and reduce the cost of health care.
Well, roundtable, stand by. We're not done with you yet. Coming up, a new face on the international stage, my exclusive interview with new UN Ambassador Samantha Power, what she thinks of Iran's new leader, and her regrets over a comment about